Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to TV learning programs. I'm teacher Aggrey, teacher of economics. Today I'm going to learn with senior 5 students. And we are still on unit 4, which is consumption, saving, investment, and multipliers. And our lesson today, we are going to look at the accelerator principle, the concept of accelerator principle. And I expect you learners, at the end of the lesson, you can be able to calculate the accelerator principle. But before I take you into today's lesson, I want us to first work out these questions. And there are 4 questions that I want us to first work out before I take you into today's lesson, which is revision of homework. Now, the first question is, given that the MPS is 0.2, find the MPC and determine the magnitude of the multiplier. You're given marginal propensity to save, which is 0.2. They want you to find the marginal propensity to consume and determine the magnitude of the multiplier, which is the size of the multiplier. Now, given that, which is question 1, solution. The solution of question 1, given that MPS, which is marginal propensity to save, our MPS stands for marginal propensity to save. Stands for marginal propensity to save. Marginal propensity to save. And MPC stands for marginal propensity to consume. MPC stands for marginal propensity to consume. Marginal propensity to consume. Marginal propensity to consume. Marginal propensity to consume. That is MPC. Now, given that the fraction of the additional income that is saved, which is marginal propensity to save, is 0.2, find the marginal propensity to consume and determine the magnitude of the multiplier. And how do we get marginal propensity to consume, learners, if we are given marginal propensity to save? Remember very well, do you remember very well, learners, what we learned in the previous lesson about the relationship between marginal propensity to save and marginal propensity to consume? Now, given that marginal propensity to consume, given that if you get marginal propensity to consume plus marginal propensity to save, it gives you 1. You get 1 is equal to 1. And this 1 presents the total income. It presents the total income. If you get the fraction of the additional income that is consumed plus the fraction of the additional income that is saved, you will get 1, which is equal to the total income. 1 presents the total income. Now, we are given marginal propensity to save, which is 0.2. Our marginal propensity to save is 0.2. And we are not given marginal propensity to consume. We are looking for marginal propensity to consume. Now, marginal propensity to consume plus marginal propensity to save. And we are given marginal propensity to save in the equation, which is 0.2. Now, where there is marginal propensity to save, we shall substitute in 0.2, which is equal to 1. Which is equal to 1. Now, our marginal propensity to consume plus will be equal to, because this we want to remain with marginal propensity to consume, we shall take 0.2 to the right side. And if 0.2 crosses, it will be, the sign will change, it will be negative. Now, if you get 1 minus 0.2, our marginal propensity to consume will be, learners join me, hope you have your calculators. If you get 1 minus, if you get 1 minus 0.2, we shall get 0.8. Now, our marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. That is our marginal propensity to consume. The fraction of the additional income that is consumed is 0.8. Now, the second question, given marginal propensity to consume is 70%. Now it is in percentage. You're given marginal propensity to consume in percentage, which is 70%. Find marginal propensity to save. Now, the solution of question 2, which is marginal propensity to consume. We are given marginal propensity to consume, which is 70%. Which is 70%. And which is the same as 0.7. Because to get 0.7, 70% is the same as 0.7. Because if you get 70%, that will be 70 out of 100. You cancel the 0, 7 divided by 10, you will get 0.7. Now, 70%, in order to simplify it, it will be 0.7, which is the same as 70%. Now, given that our marginal propensity, we are given marginal propensity to consume, which is 70%, how do we get marginal propensity to save? We are looking for marginal propensity to save given marginal propensity to consume. Now, the relationship is, if you get marginal propensity to consume plus marginal propensity to save, it will give us 1, which presents the total income, which presents income. Marginal propensity to save is 0.7 plus marginal propensity to save, which we are looking for, is equal to 1. Now we want to remain with marginal propensity to save. We shall take 0.7 to the right. And it is a positive. When it crosses the equal signs, it will change and it becomes negative. Now, our marginal propensity to save, to get marginal propensity to save, is equal to 1 minus 0.7. And if you get 1 minus 0.7, if you get 1 minus 0.7, 1 minus 0.7, it will give us 0.3. It will give us 0.3. 1 minus 0.7, we shall get 0.3. Now, our marginal propensity to save is 0.3. And when you express it in percentage, it will be 30%. Now, our marginal propensity to save is 0.3. And when it is expressed in percentage, it will be 30%. That is the second question. On the third question, calculate the magnitude of the multiplier where MPC is 40%. Calculate the magnitude of the multiplier where marginal propensity is 40%. How do we get the size of the multiplier? Because the word magnitude means the size. We are looking for the size of the multiplier. Now, on solution 3, on question 3, calculate the magnitude of the multiplier where MPC is 40%. Marginal propensity to consume is 40%. Our marginal propensity to consume is 40%. We calculate the multiplier. Now, how do we get multiplier when we are given marginal propensity to consume? Learners, hope you still remember the formula of calculating multiplier given marginal propensity to consume. And how do we get multiplier when we are given marginal propensity to consume? Now, to get the multiplier, which is M, is equal to 1 divided by 1 minus marginal propensity to consume. If we are given marginal propensity to consume, we shall use this formula. Now, our multiplier, we are looking for the multiplier given marginal propensity to consume. It will be 1 divided by 1 minus 0.4. Because For easy calculation, it will be 40 out of 100. 0.4 is the same as 0.4 is the same as 40%. Now it will be 1 minus 0.4, because 40% is equal to 40 divided by 100. You will get 0.4. You will get 0.4. Now, if you get 1 minus 0.4, learners join me. Hope you have your calculators to calculate this. If we get 1 minus 0.4, it will give us 0.6. It will give us 0.6. Now, our multiplier is equal to 1 divided by 0.6. Now, if you get 1 divided by 0.6, 1 divided by 0.6, our multiplier will be 1.66 recurring. Or we can round off to 1 decimal place. Now it is our multiplier is 1.66 recurring, or 1.7 times. Because it is a multiplier, the number of times. Now our multiplier is 1.66 or 1.7 times. If you round off to 1 decimal place, it will be 1.7 times. That is how we get the multiplier, the magnitude of the multiplier. The last question, which is question 4, and I want you to be attentive and follow. This is a tricky question, which is question 4. Question 4, given that the multiplier in an economy is 2, and the final level of income is 100 million, find the MPS and change in expenditure if the initial income was 60 million. In question 4, we are given the multiplier, which is 2. We are given multiplier. The multiplier is 2. We are given multiplier in the formula, which is 2. Given that the multiplier in an economy is 2. And the final level of income is 100 million. Even we are given the final level of income. We are given final level of income. The final level of income. The final level of income, which is 100 million. Find the marginal propensity to save and change in expenditure if the initial income was 60 million. In question 4, we are given also initial income in the question. The initial income is 60 million. The initial income is 60 million. They want us to find marginal propensity to save. We are looking for marginal propensity to save. We are not given marginal propensity to save. That is what we are looking for. And we are not given even a change in expenditure. We are looking for a change in expenditure. Change in expenditure. We are looking for a change in expenditure. A change in expenditure. And how do we get the marginal propensity to save? We are going to first look for the marginal propensity to save. We are going to first calculate for marginal propensity to save. Now, to get marginal propensity to save, to get marginal MPS, we are going to first look for marginal propensity to save. Now, to get the MPS, the marginal propensity to save, we are going to use the formula of the multiplier to get marginal propensity to save. We know that multiplier is equal to 1 over marginal propensity to save. 1 divided by marginal propensity to save. And we are given the multiplier, which is 2. Where there is M, we are going to substitute in 2. Because we are given multiplier in the question, which is 2. It will be 2 is equal to 1 divided by marginal propensity to save. We are not given marginal propensity to save, which is our MPS. Now, this, we have equal signs, we shall cross multiply. This is a whole number, which is 2 divided by 1. Now, cross multiplication. Now, if you get 2 times marginal propensity to save, you will get 2 marginal propensity to save, which is equal to 1. 1 times 1, which is 1. We want to remain with the marginal propensity to save. We are going to divide both sides by 2 in order to remain with marginal propensity to save. Divide both sides by 2. Divide both sides by 2. By 2, this will be marginal propensity to save. If you get 1 divided by 2, which is a half, you will get 0.5. That is how we get the marginal propensity to save. Now, our marginal propensity to save is 0.5. Now, we have to look for a change in expenditure. And how do we get a change in expenditure? How do we get a change in expenditure? How do we get a change in expenditure? We are looking for a change in expenditure. And how do we get a change in expenditure? Given the multiplier and given the final level of income. Now, to get change in expenditure, to get a change in expenditure, to get a change in expenditure, we cannot get a change in expenditure if we don't have a change in income. We must look for a change in income to get a change in expenditure. And how do we get the change in income? How do we get a change? This delta means a change. And how do we get a change in income? To get a change in income, we shall get the final level of income minus the initial income. We shall get final level of income, the final level of income minus the initial income, to get a change in income. And we are given the final level of income in the question. The final level of income is 100 million. The final level of income is 100 million. Final change in income is 100 million, and the initial income is 60 million. The initial income is 60 million. To get our change in income, Y stands for income. Now, if you get 100 million minus 60 million, you will get 40 million. Now, our change in income, the change in income is 40 million. That is our change in income. Now, after getting a change in income, it will be easier to get a change in expenditure using the multiplier formula. Using multiplier, it will be easier to get a change in expenditure. We know that multiplier is equal to a change in income divided by a change in expenditure. And we are given a multiplier, which is 2. We are given the multiplier, which is 2. Where there is M, we substitute in 2, which is a change in income. We have the change in income, which is 40 million, which is 40 divided by a change in expenditure. We are not given a change in expenditure. That is what we are looking for. Divided by a change in expenditure. We have equal signs. We shall cross multiply. Now, 2 times the change in expenditure, this will give you 2 change in expenditure, which is equal to 40. 1 times 40, you will get 40. In order to remain with the change in expenditure, we are going to divide both sides by 2. Divide both sides by 2. By 2, 40 divided by 2. If you get 40 divided by 2, now our change in expenditure, the change in expenditure is equal to 40 million. The change in expenditure, the change in expenditure is equal to 40 million. Our change in expenditure is 40 divided by 2. Our change in expenditure is 20 million. That is how we get a change in expenditure. Now, learners, After understanding how we get a change in expenditure and how we calculate the multiplier magnitude, now we can look at the accelerator principle, which is our lesson today. What is accelerator principle? What is meant by accelerator principle? Now, the word accelerator, I want you learners to understand. The word accelerator, what does it mean? Accelerator, the word accelerator, the word accelerator means a thing that causes something to happen. That is the meaning of the word accelerator. And in this case, consumption accelerates investment. Because with accelerator principle, we are looking at the relationship between investment and consumption. If consumption changes, investment changes. If there is an increase in consumption, there will be an increase in investment. If there is a reduction in consumption, there will be a reduction in investment. Now, what makes investment to change? It is consumption. Because with the accelerator principle, we are looking at the relationship between consumption and investment. If there is high consumption, there will be more investment. Because with high consumption, it indicates high demand of goods. When there is high demand of goods, more people will invest in production. More people will invest in order to increase production, which will increase the level of investment. But when there is low demand, this will discourage people to invest because of low consumption, which will lead to low investments. Now, accelerator principle, what we call accelerator principle, that is the number of times the initial change in consumption multiplies itself to give a final change in investment. The number of times the initial change in consumption multiplies itself to give a final change in income is what we call accelerator principle. An example, e.g., assuming that the consumption expenditure, assuming that the consumption expenditure is 80 million. A change in consumption expenditure. Assuming that a change in consumption expenditure is 80 million. And a change in consumption expenditure brought a change in investment of 160 million. Brought a change in investment of 160 million. Now, what is the accelerator? Because accelerator principle, that is the number of times the initial change in expenditure multiplies itself to give a final change in investment. Now, to get the accelerator, it means that the consumption expenditure, to get the final change in investment, which is 160 million, the consumption expenditure multiplied itself by 2 times. Because if you get 80 times 2, you will get 160. 80 times 2, it will give you 160. Now, the consumption expenditure multiplied itself 2 times to give a final change in investment, which is 160 million. Now, the accelerator is 2 times. That is what we call accelerator principle. It is the number of times the initial change in consumption multiplies itself to give a final change in investment. And how do we get the accelerator principle? How do we calculate the accelerator principle? The formula of getting accelerator principle, the formula of calculating the accelerator principle to get the accelerator principle, the formula is change in investment over change in consumption. Now, our accelerator principle, we get a change in investment divided by change in consumption. Divided by change in consumption. Divided by change in consumption. An example. If consumption of bean increases from 15 kilograms to 22 kilograms, and an increase in investment moves from 100 francs to 150 francs, calculate the accelerator principle. Now, let's first interpret the question. Let's first interpret the question where we have our data here. The data, we have consumption 1. Consumption 1 is 15. Consumption 1 is 15. Our consumption 2 is 22 kilograms. 22. And income 1, the investment is 100. Investment 1 is 100 million. And our investment 2 is 150 million. Now, to get a change in investment, we shall get investment 2 minus investment 1, which is, it will be our our accelerator principle will be 150 million, which is investment 2 minus investment 1, which is 100 million, divided by a change in consumption, which is consumption 2 minus consumption 1, which is 22 minus 15. If you get, it will be average from our accelerator principle, 150 minus 100, you will remain with 50. 50, 150, it will give us 50. Divided by 22 minus 15. 22 minus 15, if you get 22 minus 15, you will get 7. It will give us 7. Now, our accelerator principle is equal to 50 divided by 7. If you get 50 divided by 7, it will give us 7.142. And we shall round up, we can round off to the whole number. Now it is, our accelerator principle is 7.1 or 7 times. That is how we get the accelerator principle. The number of times the initial change in consumption multiplies itself to give a final change in investment. Before I end the lesson, learners, I want to leave you with the assignment. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being attentive. We meet next time. Thank you.